Hi, everyone. We are April 23, and this is the K8s-Infra meeting. As a reminder, we are under the code of conduct of the CNCF, so just a reminder that we need to be excellent to each other. Before we start, do we want to have a note taker?
I'll try to take notes.
Thank you so much. And please add your name in the attendee list. So that's often useful for the annual report. Do you have anyone new in the call that want to do a quick introduction before we continue?
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. My name is Fesu. So I'm actually from Ethiopia. It's in East Africa. So this is the first time that I joined this call. So I'm happy to be here.
Again, welcome and happy to see you around. Hopefully, you're gonna stick for a while and do boring stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Next thing is billing review. How much did we burn the last 3 months? Oh yeah, I think we now use directly the GCP report for billing report. Sorry, Justin. But yeah, not my fault.
This works good. This works fine.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything specific. Maybe if I go over the last 90 days, I don't think anything specific to GCP. So this variant is mostly related to the fact that we spent the entire month of February without the GCP commitment. It's like kind of came back later. I think that's like the one thing I noticed over the last 90 days. So basically, we have commitment on GCP. We basically have an upfront commitment of 1 year for compute, covering anything related to compute, which is about the GK node and stuff like that. So we didn't renew that on time. So we kind of like that kind of affected our costs. So that's why you see like most of the cost here is like.
At the same time, we also slightly overcommitted last year. Our workloads are not smooth enough so we intentionally also decreased it. Do we have like year to date? I was just pinging CNCF folks. We haven't had a overall spend like, you know, we get the reports in Slack that say like what's our spend across all the providers and track and like projecting towards the end of year. We haven't gotten one of those since February. So for the ones that we have direct access to, we should take a quick look at how that's going in the meantime.
Yeah, that's what I think. GCP is fine. I will go over for.
Can we look at year to date and kind of take a quick estimate?
Yeah, this is year to date.
Sorry. So
again, breakdown per project if you want. But
I guess
I think
someone, if you can like copy paste the numbers or something, we should do a quick like Intel end of year estimate.
That's
591.
Yeah. I think we're gonna be around 2 million this year. Because I'm
We're
gonna
on day 113, so
if I
112 for the day.
Yeah. If I did 3 months, let's say January to March.
Super naive estimate is like 1.92.
Yeah.
1.93.
That's what I'm saying.
Divide by that's like around 112 days spent, because you said until March 31st. Can you do what's the spend until like yesterday? We should have that data.
That's what you're looking for. Wait.
Yeah, we just want to be clear on how many days it is. So if we pick like any day that we are confident we have the data until, today will be partial data, so we should bring it to yesterday. Okay, so 591 for 112 days, so around 1.92, 1.93. So we're pretty fine. That's similar to last year.
Just to be careful, we are fine until there's no incident.
What do you mean?
In case something's happening, we need to retrigger the scalability test 5 times in the same month.
Oh, but
Because
even then we have big buffer. I mean, you're still talking about
okay,
over a third. I'm saying we're projecting to be under 2/3 of our cap.
okay,
So that's sufficient buffer for some surprise. It's not sufficient for like a systemic issue like the, egress costs going out of control or something like that. But we're also getting ahead of
okay.
that. We've started rolling out garbage collection on the staging registry so people can't ship their prod from the staging GCRs and need to pull through registry gates.io. I think we should be fine. We should check
Well,
Amazon as well though.
if people ship latest tags, that should be okay. AWS, oh, I got 2.4. Let me see if I can do year to date and dimension. I don't see anything really specific. So I expect a cost increase in the end of the year because we are moving away from CNCF account. So mostly, okay, let me give you some context. K8s, okay. K8s currently, CI, currently use CNCF account. And we shift basically to the request of CNCF, it will shift some of our credits to the CNCF account. So basically, I don't want to do that move now, otherwise we lose the credit. So I would say that we wait until the end of the year. So we know that basically the credit we have that was transferred from our account to CNCF account is going to be properly used. And by end of the year, we move the K8s jobs to our organization. That's what I'm saying. We have a good buffer similar to GCP, and that should give us room to move the K8s jobs by the end of the year.
Arno, is that year to date 673?
Yeah.
Okay,
I can
so
put
around 2.2 then.
and 2.2 because
I mean, these are
there's
very
things. Yeah, there are things I want to shut down because people, some of those accounts are basically not needed.
These are also both very naive. I mean, normally we would do something like looking at recent spend and then including the previous spend because the spend or spend a couple months ago doesn't necessarily reflect our current trend, but we still have a ballpark that's not a bad place to be. How big are we talking about with that spend from the CNCF? Do we have any idea?
I think it was like 6,000 monthly. They basically
I can
you need to
confirm that. It was
yeah
6,000 per month.
yeah.
Okay, so I mean, even if that was done at the beginning of the year, that would be another like 72K. So that we're fine.
Yeah, fine. That's why I'm not in a rush on doing that. I prefer to defer that to the end of the year because we can like properly consume the credit transfer. Basically,
My understanding is that it's a bit of a problem for the CNCF, and we have enough credits to cover it. So I don't know if we should do that.
the thing is because it's already transferred, we don't want that to be unused. That's my intent here. It's like I don't want credit transfer, and at the same time I move back things to us, and it's like we have credit in use, and like I would prefer
What are you saying? Where is the credit transferred?
From us, I mean from our credits to CNCF.
We're not doing that,
No,
are
we
we?
are not doing that.
Oh,
We're just moving the account so that it starts using our
exactly.
credits.
So basically what happened was AWS is giving credits to the CNCF account for covering the 6K per month.
yeah.
So, and they already did it for April. I don't know if they did it for May, but it doesn't affect what is in our account. So there is no transfer from our account to CNCF account. So
Okay, because my understanding is like they're gonna pick a bunch of what we're supposed to get and give it that to CNCF.
No.
Okay, cool.
No, yeah.
So we can. That's cool, which means we can move things.
Yes, absolutely. The quicker we move, the better. Yeah.
Okay. So hi Justin, if you can.
What would you? Are we going to move the account? Sorry, are we going to move the existing account under a new org, or do we want to repoint the jobs to run under a different account?
Yeah, rebrand the job to a new account.
Okay, and do you want to use
there's like
Boscos, or do you want to update the creds?
a Boscos.
Okay, so we want to get Boscos support going in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Boscos is like the how I'm gonna say this. Boscos is one of the blocker because we still need to rotate the credential.
Okay.
I would say get rid of it. That would be better. Okay, then do we want to see some?
What do you want to get rid of?
And the static credential we use to authenticate to the AWS account. That's basically by shifting to, because currently we have like access key, secret keys, those kind of things. So it's like, anything else? Yeah, Justin.
I asked it in chat. It might have been the reservations. In the GCP, on the GCP account, there was 34K or something that it was hard to see the number, not attributed to a project. What was that?
What do you mean?
You go back.
This one? That's the line? Or are you mute?
I can't use Zoom. Or the mute button. Yes, that is the line. I just didn't know what that was.
Oh, I think that's the, what's the name? Oh, commitment. That's our commitment.
Okay.
Because it's the yearly commitment on the entire organization. So basically,
it spans projects. Cool.
It's a expense project, and it's not specific to like a specific. Yeah, it's not tied to a project. It's tied to an entire organization.
So we might want to raise our commitment. Do we get an advice on like what our commitment should be or not?
We get some advice, but because of the CI, is the recommendation is not really accurate because we have to really even reduce our commitment from last year. And it's also the commitment is based on our hourly rate we put, not basically the global envelope.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, we're under our number anyway, and it is funny money. So like, but if we needed to, we could look at that, I guess.
Yeah, I think the one exercise I would like to do is basically by beginning of the year where we do the commit, we do some kind of analysis and see basically how much we want to commit each year. I don't want to do a 3-year commitment because basically funding is also a tricky conversation. So like we should like by beginning of the year do some kind of small analysis and identify what's right, because like I think last year we were committing 94 per hours and this year is like 84 because like for CI we reduce workload, we shift things from GCP to AWS. So yeah. Okay. Anything else on AWS?
So we talked about the like year projection. Did we notice any like shifts recently?
Didn't see anything. I didn't see anything specific because if I compare January to March, I don't really see anything
K8s-Infra
specific.
Pro went up a bit, but like tolerable.
Well,
as long as it doesn't go up a lot more.
More pro job, more brands. I mean, could be anything. It's like
sure, but that is something we have to keep an eye on.
Yeah. So it's like shifting, like
it's not a ton of money, but as a percentage difference on one of our largest line items, that's something to watch in future months.
yeah. Sometimes I know like scheduling could be like a trigger, because basically some people, I know, like on face an issue where like what was like timing out, so those kind of things. So it's happening and job need to retry, and carpenter is like creating new nodes. It's really hard to track because I think the way we tag the resource need to be optimized so we can track better those kind of things, and like nail down where we wish things are costing. And also, I don't have detail about all those accounts, so that's like pure speculation. I mean, the eatery shared is like, I know it's James that did something there, but I don't know what's happening there. So I'm like, okay, fine, it's running, it's working. No one is yelling about this.
Yeah, I'm the only one watching some of the jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, also it's inherently a bursty workload. I'm just saying that, like, I do notice that one seems to be trending up, and that's something that we also I think that's like one of our obvious risks, right? The CI and the content hosting are the two largest things, and they both trend towards up and to the right unless we kind of flatten them by design, which we did with the content hosting. But with CI, it's a lot harder to inherently flatten the curve.
Right.
So we just, something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it is come down to basically track down how much a job costs. And now you can like basically say, let's say if like you are capable to identify if like master blocking, what's the cost for master blocking over like 1 month, and over 3 months, you can like, okay, see like how cost is going, and maybe at a specific time of the year, there was like, oh, increase. I would basically know that, okay, there was like one job failing and then try. But in order to do that, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really want more fine-grained information on like which jobs, how many times they ran and how much did it cost us, and like we still have so many jobs that are perma failing. It's not funny. So I'll have to revisit it once we we are done with the release today. So there's a bunch of things in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm doing this. I talked to Datadog folks during KubeCon London, and basically the idea is to use Datadog to collect, analyze the data, and see what's happening, and get guidance from them how we can like tag better for our jobs, or tag or build cluster, and we basically start to investigate like.
We'll probably have to build something there because we have to tie our prow job entries to whatever they give us.
Yeah, automate tagging through a webhook or something like that. That's definitely something we should work on. Like, but if we get Datadog, we can
costs.
That's why
the Azure jobs are running from the EKS cluster right now, so that yeah.
That's fine. That's okay.
I just mean that it gets very hard to. The one thing that I worry about with that is we need to be very clear to put like a disclaimer on it or something that if you start digging through this and go, oh, this SIG is spending a bunch. Well, first of all, that's complicated because a bunch of jobs are actually shared. And second of all, you're going to wind up with things like, well, this one's actually undercounting the real cost because it isn't able to track the external resources correctly. And that unit test job that's using 8 cores is actually cheaper than the one that's spinning up the like Azure cluster.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I like bandwidth on this because I'm trying to basically set up a new build cluster so we can have and have some kind of policy enforcement to be able to split jobs between cloud provider. But yeah, I want to get with Datadog because I want to is more like a shortcut to like not build something from scratch, because building something like cross cloud billing info is hard to do and takes time. And I'm not sure I'm gonna have bandwidth, or anyone is gonna have the bandwidth to do this. So yeah, I will go through Datadog first. If that fails, we can revisit the experiment.
Yeah, the other thing that I also want to revisit is images, right?
Yes.
It's like we still don't know which images, how many times they are getting pulled and by who, and where how, that's the biggest spend right here. Registry, S3 buckets on our side. Plus, I'm sure there is similar cost on the artifact registry on the GCP side too. So we need more information here on like we should be able to turn things down if they are really old, not actually we are not reporting anymore, or like if it has.
But we're not really spending on storage, right? And the one place that was obvious to fix that was staging, and we're not done, but we have started cleaning up staging. The like it's supposedly temporary location, but for the other one, I think if you look at our storage costs, the size of these images isn't actually that bad, and the blobs are typically gzipped, so it's maybe like last time I looked, I think the entire K8s GCRIO was something like 2 terabytes, which that like in cloud storage, that's not actually very. That's like nothing in our spend. Egress is where it hits us, but if people are pulling images, that means they're using them.
Yeah, again, like we got to go back to our older mantra of like, hey, you need to put stuff in between and have intermediate things, pull through caches and whatnot.
We have done some to limit that, and when I look, so we don't have like a public dashboard, but you can, the infra admins can go look at the OCI registry, and I do look occasionally. Because cloud logging will actually notice when a field is repeated heavily, it like actually out of the box is flagging the occasional IP that's pulling a lot. The real problem we have is that because we don't make people log in, that's not a real identity for users, right? It just means it's users that are natted. Someone else that's running on like AWS and has a unique IP for each of their nodes can pull way more than someone that is natted behind their like corporate network. And there's not a lot we can do to actually identify a organization.
Correct. Yeah.
But we do have some controls in place there. And from what I see, we don't typically actually have individual users pulling a lot. The worst one we had was our own scale tests and some of the vendor scale tests, like I know GKE was. Those are both moved to use a separate pull through
cache,
or like a mirrored or an alternate build or that sort of thing.
In some cases, we even pull through CloudFront, because basically, in order to like be able to distribute better, because the one thing we did with the registry is like for each GCP location, we have an S3 bucket if possible, but it's not possible everywhere. So in order to compensate that, we put CloudFront in basically some we have a CloudFront distribution. We roll out over GCP region, but even that is still expensive. I think the one thing in order to reduce that, is make sure we have an S3 bucket on each AWS region. Like, so we really go global about this, so that will basically reduce our spend by a lot.
Or we should
because
revisit.
Currently,
we should revisit if like the CDN product is a better fit or that sort of thing. I think the problem is we need AWS experts to look at this. We have pretty good docs for our overall architecture. We just need some input on if we should alter that side of it.
I'm not able to find people who are willing to come help us do this yet, but I'm trying.
I also don't necessarily mean Amazon employees. Like we need people that
somebody with the skill, yes,
understand the the products better, the usage side.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Justin has a hand raised. Yes.
Yes, I'm sort of wondering what we are trying to achieve, by doing this going forwards. We are lucky in that, if you want to identify individual clients, we could change containerd to put like a cookie on there, right? Or some unique host identifier. If we want to put a pull-through cache, we could ship one in Kubernetes or Kubernetes SIGs and be like, hey, here's a cool pull-through cache, you should use it, right? Like we are lucky in that we are not trying to serve arbitrary clients over which we have no control in general. We basically are both sides of this. And so like, what's the goal, I guess?
Well,
I think,
all right, go ahead.
yeah, I think the goal here is to minimize our costs. Ultimately, is minimize our costs because we know that our biggest cost is currently egress. Like, if we are capable to identify in which specific region we need presence, because that's one of the problems we have. We are not present everywhere, and we pay for it. Like, if I pick here, for example, we paid 21K because someone is pulling from EU data center, that Germany. So someone close to Germany moved from it, but we don't know if we can have a presence for that person, so we minimize the cost. And I think that's where we kind of struggle with. And because you can, like, having a S3 bucket in the region where you have your OCI client basically will nullify the cost of it, because AWS has this like, okay, in region traffic is kind of zero cost. I think that's where basically we are not doing that currently, because we are not going over all the region in AWS.
Well, that line is egress from AWS, right? That is not that is to like Hetzner or someone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Justin, I have actually poked on all of those threads. Even just something like the better version info and stuff. There's a lot of interest. Same thing as the phone home conversation we had in Kubernetes. The people maintaining those projects do not want to leak more information about their users. So they're not gonna give us that. Even if you did, let's say you had some code in containerd that annotates some extra information. How does it know what an actual user organization entity is? Like, how does it get that information? We can see IP addresses.
A per host, like persistent identifier that's like, anyway. But I think
but we're basically asking containerd to add tracking to their client, and they're just going to say no. That's what's happened so far.
We can always fork containerd. That's not the end of the world. But I think like we probably should do
but the in cluster stuff also, it's similar. It's a layering violation. We do have extensive docs for this. The other thing that I see,
hold on, it's not a layering violation. Why is it a layering violation to encourage people to use a proxy? If we're encouraging people to use a proxy,
no. I'm saying to like bake in using a mirror.
Well, we can.
That happens down at the because kubelet doesn't pull, and containerd does support this. And we have docs for how to use it.
Okay.
The biggest thing that I see that we could get fixed in the ecosystem that's not fixed, but I'm not sure how much it actually costs us, is the way mirroring works is very dumb, and mirrors just try to pull all images from all hosts because they don't have the right information plumbed through.
Right.
Containerd already has a feature for this, but OCI continues to refuse to standardize that feature, which means all the registries refuse to implement that feature, so it's useless. It's also not implemented in non-containerd clients. So currently, there's basically no reasonable way to set up a mirror that doesn't try to pull every image from all hosts when you have a pull-through cache. So one of the reasons it's difficult for us to share our logs is they're full of people trying to pull their corporate internal images. And those requests, they're not as expensive because the egress is smaller, but it's not nothing. So we actually also... We it's not pure win, and that does need fixing in the ecosystem. And if someone wanted to go push on that, that would be great.
Well, I mean, it sounds like we need a Kubernetes 6 project that implements the cluster scoped mirror correctly, right? Doesn't leak internal images up to registry K8s.io, right? And
that would be out of scope for us, because basically we don't.
Maybe it depends how you define us, right? There's an us that says it's out of scope, and there's an us that says it's in scope. I'm in the in scope team, and let's if you would like us to do that, then let's just do it, right?
No,
we don't need to.
We
don't need permission. We don't need a cap. We just do it.
Yeah, but so there's nothing that needs to change in cluster. You could build a little registry that does this, but it won't change anything because what I'm seeing is enterprise organizations that are deploying commercial ones, right? So they're not going to adopt your like Kubernetes SIG's internal one because they have a corporate managed.
But those people are not addressing your like the us that is like out of scope. That crew, like you don't care about those people. Those people are not your problem.
But those other ones are but those I mean they are because they're the ones that have big usage. The long tail of people with tiny clusters don't.
Because they're using a commercial high quality thing that only has like a single request, right?
Oh no, I'm saying we get spammed with requests for images that we don't provide.
Okay, well
that is a tractable problem that has not been resolved.
I think from a money perspective, if we wanted to solve the problem of a lot of people that don't want to pay money for a proxy that might do weird things, or a caching proxy that might do weird things, why don't we just like endorse something that we like? And if we can't find something we like, let's spawn one.
Look in the chat. I do. Like if you visit Registry K8s.io, one of the first things we mention is we have docs for here's how you identify images to mirror, here's how you use them, set up and use a mirror, and here's how you consume it, and a bunch of different cluster tools and like mirroring tools and host tools. We have pretty detailed guidance for that, and we constantly promote it to users.
Well, this is the first I've seen it, so that's good to know.
Oh, we've been working on this forever. And we sent a lot of blog posts out too last year. So
I remember the blog posts. Yes,
yeah.
I didn't realize we had gone this far. This is good.
Right.
Yeah, I've spent some time adding more tools to this, so you have a lot of options there. They're all fine.
Right.
But the namespace parameter thing, I'll send you that out of ban. We can follow up on that.
Even with the mirror thing, you still have the problem of distributions using the registry and not like having a mirror. And that's like where like we also have this problem because, you know, Cup Spray, for example, we use the registry to deploy images. So it's going to be really hard unless you like pushing for A. That's why basically the notion of mirror is mostly for people we're trying to push for mirroring because we basically say that if you want to use basically a vanilla distribution of Kubernetes, mirror everything so you don't have any issue if we shift from one cloud provider to another. The cost problem is easy to solve. I can put everything behind the Fastly endpoint and that's solve the problem. We don't have to care about all of this. But there's a notion of latency because you can beat in region traffic latency.
Yeah, but no, we don't want to put everything in the Fastly thing either, right? Because that's a donation too, and we can't rely too much on like one single thing. That's why we're spreading everything out here. So yeah, it's definitely contributes to the mix for sure. Yeah. I think we've gone way off on the weeds on this one, so we got to get back on track.
Okay. Yeah, updates. No. Last update is like IBM Cloud is up and running, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they're basically doing stuff. I saw a few image build for mainframe. That's great.
Yeah.
That's my lead. I think that's the only update I have. Yeah, I don't think we had anything to ring KubeCon, so yeah, that's my only update. Okay, open discussion. Do we want to do some triage first before? By the way,
Arno, can we talk a little bit about the headlamp use case?
Yes and no at the same time, because I feel like
I mean, I want to say no. Like, how do we say no is the question, right? We can't say no without talking about it.
I think it's a matter of basically my opinion on this is more like a matter of big conformance to how we do CI in the project. Like use Prow, use Kube test tool, use kind if needed, and that's it. You
They're
basically
not asking for CI though.
Yeah, I get they want an account for development, but I'm basically saying like, okay, push for CI first. It's like make sure you have automate tests instead of having people doing the development for it before
Even
we
if
talk
they
about
push for
development.
CI, I don't know as a general trend if we really want projects to be trying to have CI against a bunch of managed services, because whether or not we care about that, then we also have the problem that the next thing is going to be, oh, I want to test, I don't know, Oracle Cloud or something. And we're like, well, we don't even have that. And then what, we're going to try to get credits to test that? I mean, part of the point of the conformance program is that these things should be relatively portable. So, I don't know if we want to dig that hole even in CI. We generally steer people towards using open source clusters to avoid that kind of distinction.
Yeah. Are they trying to be conformant? Kubernetes conformant?
No, I mean they're trying to do something involving integrations with EKS, and the specific one doesn't really matter, right? The point is that they're trying to work out integrations with an offering, and it's understandable that that's kind of hard to do purely through CI. So we could enable manual development, and I mean it is a vendor that is sponsoring us, so that might be aligned. My concern is that if we start handing out dev accounts, that's very hard to track, and it's going to be very prone to leaked resources and that sort of thing, because there's no defined scope for like when are you done with it. And I think anybody that works in any of the cloud vendors knows that if you just let developers spin up things willy-nilly, pretty soon you wind up trying to build something like Boscos around developer accounts because they're not shutting down projects, and I just don't think we have the bandwidth to take on that kind of effort and track developer accounts. And I'm not sure that it has enough value for the project. But I mean, this is
Plus,
kind of
there is no
specific.
bound on the cost, Ben. That is the
Yeah.
biggest problem we have.
Well, technically, okay. When I say I want to say yes, because there's a precedent about this, is most like steering need to validate the request, where basically steering a sub project could, let me finish. A sub project could reach out to steering to get budget allocation of the infrastructure, and basically I know the line on this is more like trigger or something. And when Siri approved that, K8s-Infra will provide an account. We did that before for SIG Windows. Now, because of that, it's difficult to track down. I want to say no, because we have CI, and I know some sub-project doing a unit test and E2E test against EKS without a dedicated development account. That's why I'm saying like there's a yes or no, because yes, there is a precedent about this, and no, we should not perpetuate that precedent. We should that's what I'm saying. I know it's possible to do an E2E test against EKS. They should push for it before the basic and try it and tell us, okay, we failed to do that. That's why we need a dedicated account.
Okay, there's a couple different things to unpack there. So in the past, we set up dev accounts specifically for like LFX interns because we asked them to work on the project and they had difficulty developing purely locally. I think that's a more narrow edge case. Like we invited someone to work on something and they felt blocked without resources, so then we sorted that out. Versus people are just freely working on something on their own time and want to build around something that involves one of these vendors. That is a little bit different. And then the other part being, again, I don't know that we really want to be encouraging even CI that specifically requires spinning up one of these managed products. That's kind of a weird place to be in as a project, and it also is going to lead to, I think it will lead to requests for more managed clusters, and I think that's the wrong direction. I think as a project we should be taking the stance that you should be building around portable APIs, and like we're not going to spend project resources on that. But I mean, that's a little tricky, right? Because we do have things like the cloud provider integrations that inherently enable doing the portable APIs by doing some non-portable stuff under the hood. So it's not like we can block everyone from doing this. I don't know where that boundary lies, but I think that needs discussing. We could escalate the steering, but I really think SIG K8s-Infra should think about it first.
That all I'm saying is like people are already doing this. It's like I know people are already doing this. That's why I'm like maybe we should like try a different direction because we are 10 minutes away and the other service to talk about. I want to push for CI first with the tooling we have before we talk about dedicated account. That's like that's my take. It's like set up some CI, see what's happening. If it's not working, we can talk about dedicated account. Yes, if that.
Sorry, do you think that there's a maybe I agree with what you said, that the default one is to use the existing open source toolset that it's offered, especially if there's ample documentation in the community to illustrate how to utilize said toolset. But to Ben's point, it seems as maybe an additional definition of each of the categories that Ben specified. And if you belong to category A, you might get more allocation in terms of dev accounts, especially if those necessitate the actual, like I don't say carpenter, for example. I think in a previous meeting that also was mentioned is that there's a need for the ability to spin up those instances, for example. So I'll probably use the edge case example, but depends on what the tools provide and what they own, I would say. But maybe a category would be categorization of these three sections, or would help out in terms of fishing out whether a use case or a developer or a group needs a dev account or not, whether that's acceptable. Thank you.
Yes, Ben.
I think, dev accounts is just an uncapped cost. Like we can't, the other thing is the providers, when they donated this, I don't think this was considered in scope. Like if I go look at the GCP, donation discussions, they're about operating the project and the project's infrastructure. Developer accounts is a very different subject. And I'm worried about growing the spend there. I really think we should be saying, look, you can figure out how to test locally or to test through CI. We're not going to just give people the keys to spin up things with ClickOps. It's just a liability. And on how can we decide if you're a random new contributor to the project, at what point do we decide you're allowed to start having a dev account and spend? That's going to be a very unfun conversation for us to be handling.
Yeah, because we're like 9 minutes away. I feel like next we want to like move that conversation. We can have a dedicated meeting about this. I'm fine with that. Like, and in the meantime, I think for teams.
I don't know. Can we do two things? One is, yes, let's have this conversation again. And in a formal fashion, add it to the agenda, invite people. But also for Headlamp, tell them to open up a steering funding request for now. And so we'll do both. How's that? So they and they can talk to steering.
I'm going to send them back to K8s-Infra.
That's fine. If it comes back again, that's fine, Ben.
Okay.
But I don't want them to be, feel stuck.
Yeah. I think the issue, this is, I mean, for me, it's not new where the conversation around dev account. It's more like it's going to set a precedent for anyone be able to request a dev account. And I don't think that's scalable for us. We are a small village. If you have to provide a dev account for everyone, there's no end to this.
The abuse horror stories that I know of is like crazy, and like there is no end to it. And Yeah,
I know we
it's
need to
just a
wrap up,
recipe for
but
disaster.
they actually have said, okay, that's the last update on the thread. There is not any further push on this, so I don't know that we need to do more at the moment. Also,
Yeah.
as far as horror stories, if we talk to the CNCF, they have specifically had serious problems with this when they've provided dev accounts in the past. So we know that this is a problem.
Correct.
Is there any mechanism for governance that we might utilize from a, like FinOps?
We can do budget. We can do some kind of budget on each GCP, each cloud provider, and get alerts in on that. And that's a way for us to basically track down. We did that in the past where we were over budget on GCP. We were basically getting alerts every month. I don't know if you remember this, yeah.
Yep.
Because that's the only way currently that's I don't want to say only way. That's one of the feature a cloud provider can provide, and we can track down costs. The real problem is like if you do that on 100 dev account, you get alerting for no reason.
We cannot scale. We don't have enough people
Yeah.
to like watch and respond and go track people and hunt workloads
And-
down and shut things off.
As a project, we've
That's not
invested
possible.
as a project, we've invested extensively in tooling that you can run on a laptop. Kind
Right.
aside, we have things like KWalk and KubeMark and like tooling that is built so that you can test this without having to depend on cloud resources because we can't provide cloud resources to the whole internet.
Maybe one final note, maybe we could revisit the guides and documentations on utilizing these tool sets and make sure that that everyone is aware of it to eliminate any stranglers in a sense, right? Inform everyone that needs to, that then they will be able to utilize these tools. I'll be happy to
Okay.
look into it with you.
Feel free to start work on it. I don't think you need any permission from us about this. That would be a great improvement. So feel free to start to work on it. Okay. So we have 5 minutes left to talk about 2-3 things. I might be over time for the meeting. I think my first topic is more like we had a request. I think it was like about getting GPU for testing, and that made me think about if a sub project want to use GPU and have as a valid reason to do it, what kind of policy we put in place for this? Because in my case, I might need to run an inference server for the maintenance tool project, and if I want to run, for example, Yammer 4 because it's good at reasoning, and I need a significant GPU, what's the policy around that?
No, I think of this similar to code search, right? Code search, the utility, we are running it for the project. People in the project are using it. And if it needed a GPU, we would have asked for the budget and we would have gotten it. It didn't need one, so we were able to fit it into the existing infrastructure and we are able to run it, right? So it is exactly the same thing. So we should be fine with using accelerators as part of something that we are standing up for the project's general use. So that's the way I think about it.
Yeah, I think the difference between this and past requests is we're actually using the output of running the model.
Yeah.
There were previous requests that were basically like, I want to test and see what happens when we route traffic based on how heavily loaded the model is. And that is
right.
That we're steering them away both from this is not an effective way to test and this is an expensive way to test versus this. I mean, there is not really an alternative. The alternative is we don't do it at all or we pay for a managed service. So I think, that's the key distinction. If we have a use case that seems justified for the community around that requires one genuinely and fundamentally uses the output, then that's something that we're reviewing and improving.
Right. Yeah. The other thing I'll also say is like I've been wanting to, periodically convert our website and community repository and whatever else I can get my hands on into Markdown, feeding it into as a RAG, and like allowing people to search, because Google search on GitHub is a waste of time, right? So I've been meaning to try some of those kind of things. I'll get around to it at some point, but yeah, that'll follow the same thing that you are thinking about, Arna, here.
Okay. Cool. And basically, the second point is more like if you want to consume foundation models, what's how I'm gonna phrase this? Well, the most recent foundation models have like specific licensing. Like when you look at Llama, Mistral, even Gemini, they are not open model. They basically have specific licensing. And I'm like, if I want to like use one, what's the policy around that? Is it up to us to make that policy?
No.
We need to talk to steering.
No, there's a specific policy for dependencies in the CNCF project. As an operational thing, we might be able to skirt that, in which case I think it's fairly YOLO. The concern I have is if we have to sign any agreements. That's not something we can do without escalating to like the CNCF.
Steering. Or steering.
Yeah, but
well, but even steering, we will have to turn around and go to the CNCF because we have to talk to LF legal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our escalation procedure is basically what I'm saying, Ben.
Oh yeah, I just mean that like we will ultimately be blocked on the feedback from LF legal, which will take a bit. If at all possible, we should avoid anything that requires us to sign agreement and use something that just has like, a license, preferably one of the permitted dependency licenses. Because as soon as we have code that links to it, then then we're falling afoul of the policy. And we do get a periodic audit from the CNCF to steering about this, and then we have to turn around and reach out to projects and say, you need to stop using this MPL license dependency, that sort of thing. Well, I think we'll have the same problem here if we're like directly interfacing.
Yeah, no, I'll also say that what is the use case which needs the LLM consumption? What is the benefit to the community? What are you trying to build? So that goes into the consideration as well. So we'll end up looking at like, is that the only option that there is, and is there a better option? Is a good enough option, kind of thing, right? Like, you don't have to go for the Lamborghini every time, right? So
the reality of things is basically on each major cloud provider, when you look at the model guidance, you need to sign agreement for the most recent models, like Gemini 3, Titan, whatever model recent, because if we basically, and this is in the scope of the maintainer tool, we want to use a foundation model to basically, let's say, do CAP review, we need to use the most recent one because we don't want to train it ourselves. So we rely on something already trained on data recent, in the sense that, okay, that model was shipped in 2024. But in order to do that, we need to basically use the most recent model, or we fine tune it. That's basically the one option I was looking to. I realized, okay, if I use one model, I need to sign an agreement, and like there's a legal question to it.
Yeah, if somebody has to click a button, that has to be CNCF staff. So let's keep that as a rule, right?
Yes, Justin. Before we
I do think the way forwards here is to demonstrate that it works with like running locally, right? Like no one says I can't contribute if I'm using a commercial IDE, for example, right? What I do on my own device is my business, and I'm responsible for the code I produce, right? So I think that's the way we can do it, and you don't ask what model I'm using type thing.
Okay. When you say locally,
you're muted.
There's a trigger. Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you weren't. Sorry. Go ahead.
Locally, in the sense that there's like limitation to it, because you need to be able, if you are a student with a M1 MacBook and you want to run the tooling we built to run that locally, there's a limitation, because basically the model, like whatever model we decide to use, may not run because you don't have enough memory.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it'd be great if we get to a place where we're hosting a model and hosting this like we host code search, but let's start with the slightly less inclusive, admittedly, approach to demonstrate that there is value and we can justify that cost type thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be
always
great.
keep it pluggable. Don't depend on
That's the other thing. If you can keep it using some sort of like, standard like OpenAI style API, then we also have less of a problem with LF Legal because we can say, well, the code is not actually linked in any way to any particular model.
Yeah.
This will make things easier for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. We are out of time. Do we want to stick around?
I got to drop.
Yeah, I got to drop.
Yeah. See you
Thanks
later.
all.
Yeah.
Same.
Uh,
Take care, everyone.